This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
It is Long Shots here on a very special edition on a Tuesday morning, coming to you live from the studio here at Circa, largest sportsbook in the world. Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelley Bydlon for the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. Boys, how you feeling heading into this one?
Doing great, Matt. Feeling great. Feeling dangerous. Feeling dangerous after the past couple months, okay? I'm looking forward to it. Wes, top-heavy board, man.
Yeah.
A lot of firepower coming into this event. I'm looking forward to doing this show and talking it through.
Cautiously pessimistic.
I like it.
We'll call it.
I like it. I like that. I mean, we'll see how my bets pan out. I might be just full-on pessimistic, not even cautiously pessimistic when it's all said and done. But, yes, as Kelley mentioned, it is a top-heavy leaderboard. You have two of the guys that have been playing the absolute best in the world go along with the guy that's over on Live been playing the most consistent and the best. And what you get, Kelley, is a couple of dudes at 5-ish to 1, 4.5-ish to 1, 4-ish to 1, and then a guy that has plummeted in Bryson DeChambeau. This was a number you could have gotten a week ago at about 15, 16. You could have gotten over the weekend at about 12. And pretty much everywhere he is under double digits now. Yeah,
this is a little sneak peek for later, but I screwed that one up. That's for sure. Because I was that guy 2 weeks ago. I was like 16 to 1. I don't know. Maybe this could get a little better. And then Wes, over the weekend, I had every intention of betting him, and I'm like 12 to 1. When this board resets, I got to be able to get better than that. And no, not really. So I had to settle for a worse number.
Yeah, he won the prior weekend and Live in Korea. Now they sent these Live guys Mexico City and Korea, so that's great preparation, right, for the PGA. But then you look at the course breakdown, which we'll get to later in the program, and you see 7,600 yards, par 71, not a lot of danger if you miss fairways, or not too much danger at least. So that's right up Bryson DeChambeau's alley, because last I checked, he's a very long hitter off the tee.
Yes, quite a long hitter off of the tee. And, of course, you go down a little bit further, it's going to be names that you recognize. John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig sitting out there in that weird number where you get tempted, but is it not quite there for him? Joaquin Niemann, Hideki Matsuyama. We're getting all of the best players here, guys, and so with all of that, you will see some bigger numbers attached to some of these guys. Remember, we were playing in a limited field last week, so we had to give that disclaimer of like, okay, these numbers aren't going to necessarily match up completely here because of a smaller field, but a full 156 players going to tee it off here. That being said, we do know that some of these are past champions that are maybe past their prime. This is also going to be some of the teaching professionals out there, so not necessarily any win equity amongst those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Look, it's different than the Masters, but similar in that sense, right? There are a number of guys that you can kind of chop off, and you don't have to worry about them really making too much danger for yourself in your betting card. But just those are things to keep in mind when you're looking at top 20 odds, top 40 odds, make miss cut prices, that sort of thing, right? Is really how strong is this field just in general? And then, I think we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but you're looking at outright prices. How many of these guys can truly win this event? Because I think it is a shorter list probably than most people do.
But despite the fact that we do have, as you guys mentioned, the 20 club pros that get in through the PGA of America, who sanctions this event, and that's for teaching professionals and club professionals and all the former champions, this is the strongest field of the year. And it's rated as such. I think he goes by Nosferatu on Twitter at VC606. He does the official world golf ranking breakdown. And this is the strongest tournament rating since the new OWGR was introduced recently. So very strong field, despite the fact that you can cut off so many that aren't going to win.
Yep.
Wes, we head over to Charlotte, North Carolina here for this one, and the story heading in to Quail Hollow really is the weather, and that's unfortunate because we normally want to talk about, just how awesome this course is and how we've seen this course a ton, how we feel like we think we know how this course is going to play, and instead it dumps a couple of inches of rain on Monday, more rain in the forecast on Tuesday. Wednesday, maybe just a little bit of a break there on Thursday, but it looks like Thursday evening could fire back up into Friday and Saturday. So that's kind of got to play into our breakdown here of the course just in general.
Yeah, it may soften it up a little bit. Now on the greens, they have that sub-air system. So the greens are still, you think, going to be pretty firm, running about 13 on the stimp. I would consider that fast condition. So champion Bermuda grass here. But breakdown of the course just really quickly. Tom Fazio did the read redesign here in 2016, did the renovation. Of course, remember this hosted in 2017 where Justin Thomas won at 8 under par. Par 71 this week, par 72 for the members, by the way, 76-26. Second longest on tour this year, the longest being Torrey Pines South for the Genesis. Last time the PGA was held here, plus about 2.5 strokes per round was the score average. So that was the 5th toughest major since 2014. Aside from the par 5s, you got 3 par 4s at 500 or longer. You've also got a couple that are shorter than 350. So that's going to tempt these big hitters to drive the greens. It's not an arduous walk, though, because the tee boxes and the greens are positioned like right next to each other. It's not all that hilly or elevated, so it's actually a pretty nice walk for these guys. Fairways 28 yards average, 7th narrowest. It's going to be a little bit heavier, by the way, on like the ryegrass side versus the Bermuda grass. The rough is going to be more ryegrass because Bermuda, that sticks to the club, right? So ryegrass a little bit better. And then on the greens, like I mentioned, Champion Bermuda. The toughest hole stretch on this course is known as the Green Mile, hole 16 through 18. The signature hole is the 17th, the par 3. You got a tee shot over a pond, bunkers on both sides. You're going to get a lot of water balls. And you have in this event, this usually hosts what used to be known as the Wells Fargo Championship, now the Truist Championship. So this is a regular course that these guys have played. 61 bunkers on the course, protected greens, water's in play on 6 holes, but it's a typical Carolina tree line design is basically what it is. And I think if you want to compare maybe to some other classical courses, Torrey Pines certainly for the length, but very Winged Foot, Muirfield, Valhalla, Bethpage, a lot of the traditional courses for the PGA Championship, some from the U.S. Open, and then some Tom Fazio designs that you see featured on the tour as well. He's also had redesign input into Marion, into Oakmont for the U.S. Open. So it's going to be a test. We'll see what the scoring is going to be. The winners of the Wells Fargo have been shooting like high to mid-teens. I don't know if we're going to get that high. I don't know if we're going to get to 8 under par, so I'm going to say it's probably in between lower double digits.
You're watching us over on the YouTube page. Appreciate you guys being with us here live. Go ahead, subscribe over there on that channel. If you're listening to the replay over on our podcast side of things, subscribe, rate, review. Do appreciate you guys being with us here on this one. Top 70 and ties are going to move on here in this one. And Kelley, if you really kind of break this down from a course standpoint, you've got this. It's the par 5 7th, par 4 8th, the par 5 10th, the par 4 14th, and the par 5 15th are the only holes that play under par historically at Quail Hollow. So the other 13 holes historically play over par. So you look at these par 5s, and we'll talk about the stats that really matter to us as we get into next segment. But the par 5 7th, 47% birdie or better rate. The 10th has a 38% birdie or better rate. The par 5 15th has a 47% birdie or better rate. So half the field is going to birdie 2 of these holes, and then, over a third of the field is going to birdie the other one. There are only 3 par 5s, as we mentioned, par 71 here as the way that they lay this out. You have to go and score on the par 5s. It's only the 8th has a 32% birdie or better. That's a par 4. And then the 14th is just shy of a 38% here. But you are losing a stroke, basically, if you don't go and attack these par 5s.
Yeah, have to score there. You said it. That will be big when we talk about stats that kind of mattered to us and what we looked at for this tournament specifically. Again, we have seen this golf course a lot, so we kind of know what we're looking for here. Distance is going to matter both off the tee and on the irons, and that helps you with your par 5 scoring. So that will be baked in heavily. I think the other thing worth mentioning is par 3s. The 4 par 3s, you're shooting over par basically on all of them is what they're averaging out to. So it really is score on the par 5s. Maybe you can get one of those par 4s that are kind of drivable for some, and you got to survive the rest. Those are big. Other real quick ones I'll throw out, we talk about approach. If you listen to this podcast, we talk about approach all the time and how much it matters on the PGA Tour and in golf handicapping. This is one of those courses where that gap between how much it matters from on approach and off the tee success is very, very small, and off the tee really creeps up to mattering almost as much as approach.
Yeah, Kelley, as you mentioned, 3 of those par threes, 249, 205, and 223. For golfers out there, you will understand the distance that we're talking about on this course here. On those par 4s, outside of those 2 that Wes mentioned that will play under par and will be at least somewhat maybe drivable for some of these guys, outside of those 2, we've got a 505, a 452, a 483, a 449, a 530, 462, 456, 529, and 494, including that 18th hole that is so incredibly difficult. So, Wes, I mean, it is just a lot of length here, a lot of girth to this course. And as you mentioned, with the rain, might not get as much rollout in these fairways, might not be able to hit some of these speed slots that we've kind of heard about that you can hit depending on your shot shape and whatnot. So, seems like we're going to need these guys that can get it on out there.
Rough also may get a little bit heavier. I didn't want to sell it like it was totally non-penal, but it's going to get closer, I think, to about 4 inches. It's not very high, but it's very thick. I think Johnson Wagner on the Golf Channel. Johnson, by the way, former PGA Tour player and member here at Quail Hollow, says it is going to be thick stuff and it is going to grow over the weekend. I know the greenskeeper, whatever title, director of green and grounds is the guy's name, Keith Wood, was saying, yeah, it's going to get bigger over the weekend, but I still think it's going to be relatively firm, especially on those greens, and you got those complex greens where you're going to have to be tidy with that short game this week.
Kelley, a little bit interesting too is normally we can come in here on a Tuesday, give you a little bit of insight to what we hear from these golfers and what they hear about the course. I listened to Justin Thomas this morning. He's like, yeah, I have no idea. I hadn't been out there. Because of the rain yesterday, they weren't even out on the course, and so.
Well, Hideki was.
Hideki Matsuyama, I was going to say.
Yeah,
I don't think the heavy stuff is coming down soon.
Yeah, Hideki was out there for sure, but interesting, a little less insight than we would normally have here on a Tuesday. When we come back, let's talk the stats that matter and what did our models tell us.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Long Shots here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Matt Brown, Mike. Almost went with the normal show here. Wes Reynolds, Kelley Bydlon here. Look at that. Almost went with the normal show there that we do here on the network. Talking PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. Again, you're going to hear a lot about the rain. Rightfully so. We saw what happened this past week when the rain moved in. It certainly changed the playing conditions, so I think that's something we're going to need to take into consideration as we put the statistics into our model. And guys, if you're just joining us, if you just found us over on the YouTube page, whatever it might be, if you're listening to the replay over on the network, we say this every single week. We are not coders. These are models that were made by other people out there. We put in the statistics that we think that matter. We weight them appropriately, how we feel they are important. But just to let everyone know, we did not make these models. These are hard work of other people out there, guys at BetSperts, the guys at Rick Run Good, the guys Fantasy National, et cetera, all of these guys that we have used along the way, Data Golf as well, to help us get to where we get to when we make these bets. And so talked a lot about it with the distance stuff here, thinking that this is going to play at least a little bit softer. Maybe the distance, the carry distance, things like that are going to come into play. And Wes, as we talk through what we put in, it wasn't just the video yesterday. I was going to weight it pretty heavily as it was anyway. But then, man, you see that video, you look at the forecast, you see how things are going on. And I'm not saying I eliminated shorties because that's not necessarily how I go about handicapping. But I will say I put a very heavy emphasis on dudes that are going to be able to get it out there a little bit further. I mean, I didn't wipe the slate clean of shorties. But boy, it is going to be tough for me to get them in the account.
But back in your day, you did.
Yeah, distance was pretty high for me as well, and you could take a guess who profiles high. DeChambeau, Neiman, Rahm, Minwoo Lee, Rory McIlroy, Wyndham Clark, Koepka, the usual suspects are going to profile very high there. I did use approach because the greens, despite the fact that they're about 6,500 square feet, I think, on average, so they're pretty big greens, but they're not easy to hit. It's only about 61% on the greens and regulation rate. So if you look at the last two winners here at Quail Hollow, Rory and Wyndham Clark at the Wells Fargo Championship, fourth and first respectively in approach that week. So I used approach. We talk about like some of the, if you're going to use par 5 scoring or par 3 scoring. I did a little strokes gain par 4, 400 to 450, because you got 6 of those holes. You got some really big par 4s here. So I use that. I use strokes gained around the green because you got those shaved runoffs and the false fronts. It's going to make chipping a little bit difficult. Greens are also faster here. I still think the green speed, even with the weather, is going to be what it is because of that sub-air system. So it's still going to be 13 on the stem. So around the green, scrambling, little combo platter there. Putting, I just went with general putting for a little bit instead of going specially with like Bermuda, because this is overseeded with a little bit of POA. So some of the Bermuda is dormant this time of year in North Carolina because it hasn't really heated up. So I did just general putting. Bogey avoidance is something I think that you want to look at because the around the green and the putting numbers are all more difficult here at Quail Hollow than the average tour course. And that's even in a non-major championship setup. That's at the usual Wells Fargo, now Truist event. And this being a PGA Championship, you would think it's going to be tougher. Strokes gain long courses just for some general scoring. But with modeling, I think you want to look at the stats, but this is also a little bit different in major championships because we have players from around the world, because we have a lot of the live players, and we don't have as much live data as certainly we get on the PGA Tour on a weekly basis from a statistical standpoint. So this is a little bit, maybe not be too much of a slave to the model. You would think in a major championship you would be all that, but I think you got to go with a little bit of that and a little bit of gut this week, and that's basically what I did. So that's why I didn't go that much in depth in terms of stat modeling this week.
Bryson DeChambeau, in his last 25 rounds, it has shot level data. It's 21 rounds on live and then 4 with the Masters. He is averaging plus 1.97 strokes gained off the tee per round for him so far in his last 25 rounds. Just let you know how much he is just destroying it off of the tee and doing it where it's not just spraying all over the place.
How about in 2025, over 4 strokes off the tee gained in every tournament that he's teed it up in. Now, yes, a lot of that is live, leaker competition, but still over 4 strokes gained off the tee.
Well, just to let you know, one of the things we used to talk about with Bryson all the time was that, like, yeah, he's long, but he's you never know if he's going to spray it all over the place, and if that's the case, it doesn't really work at some of these different courses. But that is not what's going on.
Pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah.
I think he's like top 6 or 7 on live. I know different type of courses, but still, his accuracy has been pretty good for as long as he hits it.
Really, really impressive stuff from him so far. Hadn't equaled a ton of wins over there, but he's always in the mix, it seems like. Kelley, like I said, I very heavy off the tee for me, very heavy on a distance thing for me. I put in a little bit of weighted statistics just to kind of see what that was all about. Mixed condition model was a baseline of 30 rounds for me with some emphasis on last 24, last 12. So that was just to kind of see who might be riding it hot coming in here. A little bit of bogey avoidance for me. I put in, strokes gained on hard courses, long courses, just to kind of maybe, again, see who plays those a little bit better than everybody else. And then just put a ton on par 5 scoring, because I do believe that is going to be the key this week. Look no further than this past week, in which Justin Thomas comes up a couple of strokes short, in which Sepp Straka played the par 5s at 7 under, and Justin Thomas played them at 3 under, and that was the difference in the tournament.
Did that matter for a couple of us?
Maybe it did. Yeah. I didn't bring that up for any reason or anything, but that didn't bring that up for any reason other than the fact that, yes, he should have gone on and he should have won the thing. But for me, that's kind of where I landed on everything. Of course, we always talk about approach each and every single week. I didn't do any buckets with this one, really, because I don't want to skew this. I can't just assume everything is going to be super long approach shots in and whatever and all that. So I just did overall approach.
Yeah, I did a little bit more, it sounds like, than both of you guys. But I kind of went back to the mainly my kind of static Quail Hollow model and just did a couple little tweaks. Wes, I think you brought up a couple things that, hey, we're going to play this at a major, right? The rough is, even to start off, is going to be a little bit longer than what we normally see at Quail Hollow. So I think in years past, I've kind of thrown accuracy out the window and just given me distance. Did factor in accuracy off the tee, strokes gained off the tee, just in general, a little bit heavier this week, along with driving distance. Approach, I did do some lightly weighted some of the longer approach bucket windows, Matt, just because this course is so dang long. Even the guys that are pretty long off the tee are going to have to hit long iron shots still. Like you brought up, though, heavily weighted par 5 scoring. Again, that correlates, though, to all these are long par 5s. That correlates to guys that can hit it far off the tee, play well long iron play. They're going to have the most success there. Okay, I did a fair amount of putting and actually scrambling around the green stats. I didn't weight anything super heavy, but I think we've kind of seen the formula here. It's be long off the tee, hit it keep it in the fairway, hit the greens, and you're going to have to go up there and make some putts. This definitely does turn into a bit of a putting contest some weeks, as long as you can be long off the tee and with your irons. So I did strokes gained putting just overall like you did, Wes. I did putting 5 to 15 feet, wanted to see who maybe could make some of the longer ones out there, and then 3 putt avoidance.
That's pretty high here, by the way.
Yeah, 3 putt avoidance, which all is kind of then I like the bogey avoidance stat because it's kind of a catch-all for a lot of these things. It also factored that in. And then I did scrambling and around the green play. There's not a ton of bunkers here, but it feels like every year you're seeing 1 or 2 major moments in this tournament where someone's stuck in a greenside bunker, so didn't want to completely ignore that. And then long, difficult courses I factored in as well. So model a little bit more in depth, I think, this week for me than you boys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be no shock as to who's the top of these models, though.
No, not at all.
Yeah, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler for me in every version that I ran. I think that's almost a given considering how these guys are playing right now. Now, you get a little bit more data over on Rick's site. So Bryson actually all the way up at 4th in mine. So he is on up there. Some of the other models you don't get as much data from the live guys. Then you start to see some of these other, as you would imagine, anytime I'm going in and focusing on distance and things off the tee. I mean, you're going to see your Keith Mitchells, you're going to see your Rico Hoey's, you're going to see, those guys like that are making some noise in the models. But Wes, I mean, I think the only thing that really surprised me a little bit is I did see some of these guys that maybe, you don't really necessarily think that were kind of up there in the model street. Jordan Spieth, JJ Spawn, like these, Shane Lowry doesn't bomb it off of the tee. Shane Lowry inside the top 20 for me. So it did make me go in and start to look a little bit deeper into some of those guys.
Yeah, some of these outliers, that's something you want to use, I think, in placement markets, which I know Kelley has some for the show later. I will have some tomorrow up at VSiN.com. But like Rasmus Nørgaard Peterson was a guy that popped a little bit, who plays a lot on the DP World Tour. He's played a little bit on the PGA Tour. So there's a lot of guys that you can have that you don't know if they can win because this is so top heavy, but you certainly want to use them for some decent prices in top 20s and 30s.
Plenty of bets to make out there, right? Like there might be a short list of guys that I think can actually win this tournament, but with all the placement markets, matchups, still plenty of bets to make.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Kelley, because at the end of the day, I know that the way that you get the pat on the back on the Twitter machine is you show your big outright ticket or something, but like you profit on a week-to-week basis by doing this with placement markets, head-to-heads.
And in major championships, they haven't been big prices, so you're not getting that big a pat on the back.
So it's just one of those things where you got to understand, if you're doing this on a week-to-week basis, or even if you're doing it semi-regularly, go in, take advantage of all the markets that are out there. That's how you keep your bankroll healthy. When we come back, we talked about what we liked in the models, what did it spit out, and what bets ended up in our accounts.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Rolling along here, PGA Championship Edition of Long Shots. It is Matt Brown. It is Wes Reynolds. It is Kelley Bydlon. We are live on the YouTube machine. Glad to know that we are actually live.
Yeah.
I was checking it up.
That's confirmed that.
I was checking it out. So, thanks for you guys for watching.
I was
with
like,
us
is that
here.
a new ringtone or our theme music for this program?
No, it's great. We have a lot of people that are watching us out there, so appreciate you being here with us live. And of course, if you're watching the replays or listening to us over on the podcast side of things, do appreciate that as well. A soggy Quail Hollow looks to be the story as we head into the PGA Championship here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have an odds board that looks very, very interesting at the top, and how do you navigate it? Because they're the guys that are going to be at the top of all your models. They're the guys that are going to fit every statistical category that you're looking for here. I talked about listening to Justin Thomas this morning, guys, where he said he had not been out there. So since he had no insight to give about the thing, they just start asking him questions about other golfers. Because, whenever you have nothing else to say, they're like, so Rory McIlroy's had a lot of success here. What do you think makes him so successful here? Which he did give the nugget of, and he goes, well, this course fits his shot shape like no other on the face of the planet. He was like, not a lot of us hit draws really much anymore, and certainly don't hit these super high, massive, lofted draws or whatever. There's a reason for that. You can control a cut a little bit better, so many of them have changed to the cut. But Rory still hits this big towering draw off the tee, and he's like, man, this course just fits that shot shape so incredibly well. And so he's like, yeah, I'm a little envious of him being able to hit that on a consistent basis because it puts him in such good spots. So, again, that's one of the things that I did pull from a little bit of the nuggets that we were able to get today. But, Wes, you threw the numbers into your model. Your model spit out some names. What did you do as you dug in a little bit further as far as getting some stuff into your account?
Yeah, and I'll start with an observation on the board here. I think a lot of people were surprised, well, why isn't Rory the shortest guy on the board? Because he's won here 4 times. And because of what you just mentioned about the shot shape, I actually think Scotty should be the shortest guy here because he did win recently. Granted, it was a Byron Nelson against a very weak field where he had to shoot 31 under par and it was an easy course. But I think with Rory, one of the things we got to look at is he finally got the monkey off his back. He finally won that career Grand Slam. And ever since then, he's kept a pretty regular schedule. He's had to do a lot of media. I've seen him on all these shows, all the talk shows and the chat shows based out of New York. So it's like, man, he's been really keeping busy. So you wonder, now I'd expect he's going to play well and not lay an egg here, but still not for me. I forewent the first 2 favorites, but I didn't go that far down. I actually have a bet of Bryson DeChambeau at 12-1, but there was some 950 at DraftKings. There's even some like 8-1s and 750s. He was the first guy that I thought of here because I think he might be a little bit out for blood after what happened at the Masters when he's right there. He's got the big showdown with Rory. Rory kind of stumbles out of the gate, and it looks like, okay, this is going to be Bryson's day again, and Rory's going to have to fall to this guy again. And then Bryson ends up where he's like 7 shots behind Rory on the back 9 at one point, even though Rory kind of made a mess of it on a couple holes. But I think Bryson's out for revenge here. He's won on big courses, big classical courses, Wingfoot, Pinehurst, 4th at Oak Hill in the 2023 PGA, 5th and 6th the last 2 years in the Masters. The driving distance is great, also the accuracy. He also profiled very high around the green for me. He's got a very tidy short game, even though he looks like the incredible bulk with that putting stroke. He's my guy this week, and he would be the guy in a one and done that I would use this week if you're allowed to do that. 4th and 9th here in 2 visits to Quail Hollow, so course experience for Bryson DeChambeau. And I also went with the defending champion for the Wanamaker Trophy. That's Xander Schauffele, 22-1. Slowly working his way back to form. 4 finishes of 18th or better. 8th at the Masters, by the way. And there has been a recent trend since the PGA Championship has moved from August. It used to be Glory's last shot. Well, now it's in the middle, and it's in May. 4 of the 5 champions were top 10 at the Masters the month before. So you got a few of those that do make my card seeing that graphic. Xander Schauffele slowly working his way back, led the field for strokes gained off the tee in Sunday's final round. Also, by the way, the runner-up on this course each of the last 2 years in the Wells Fargo, once to Rory and once to Wyndham Clark. So Xander, I think, can play very well, and he seems like he's kind of inching closer, just a little bit below, and then this is where he could peak, and maybe that's also going to happen for Ludwig Aubert, who is drifted a little bit. Remember, the triple bogey dropped him from 3rd to 7th at the Masters. Couple finishes down the board, too, like in the 50s and 60s at the RBC and at the Truist. But he's proven himself on these lengthy courses with the win that you guys were on at the Genesis at Torrey Pines earlier this year. So I did go with Ludwig. And then my wild card play, because this guy's never really produced at a major, never had a top 10 in 23 career majors. But I think Joaquin Niemann is going to show this week. I just have a feeling. He's won 4 times in the last 5 months. On Live, also won that tournament, the Saudi International that's on now sanctioned by the Asian Tour. So he's a long hitter off the tee, too. Won at the Genesis Riviera in 2022. I think I was aboard him actually in that event. Too, yeah. So he's proven on these classical courses. I think you're finally going to see Niemann kind of in the mix. He might not win, but he's going to be in the mix. And I think Patrick Cantlay is, too, at 45-1. Not a standout record here at Quail Hollow, but 4th at the Truist. He was my closest pursuer last week. Led the field in GIR, 3rd for approach. Ball striking has been there. Putting hasn't come around, but he did gain 3.5 strokes in Sunday's final round. So Cantlay at 45. Victor Hovland at 55. That's starting to drift a little. That's more taking a number because I was like, Victor Hovland can't be 55-1 in the PGA Championship.
It's drifting even more than
No, it's going downwards, I should say. It's going down to like 50s and in the mid-40s. But last 2 PGAs, 2nd at Oak Hill in 2023, 3rd at Valhalla. He seems to be like a PGA Championship type of player. Let's look at his last 8 rounds. 68, 66, 66, 66, 68, 67, 70, 68. 3rd on debut also here at Quail Hollow in 2021. And then I had to have one bomb, not like a crazy bomb because he played very damn well at the last major, finishing 3rd at the Masters. Patrick Reed, who's got really good form here at Quail Hollow. Remember, he was the co-runner-up. I believe there were 3 runner-ups to Justin Thomas, 2 strokes back at the 2017 PGA. Patrick Reed was one of those. Also 6th in 2021, 8th in 2018. He was actually walking the course with his brother-in-law, with Kessler today, and he also had a Quail Hollow member that might be a familiar name named Harold Varner III, who plays with him on Live. So I thought that was kind of like an interesting little nugget. Shout out Matt Gannon actually pointed that out on Twitter. So Patrick Reed. So look, I went with name players. I did not go off the grid here because I think what we've seen in majors, who's the last non-likely major winner? What was it, Brian Harmon at the Open? Yeah. We haven't seen very many of those in the last several years, and I don't think we're going to see somebody off the radar here either.
Well, Matt and I had a quick chat on the phone yesterday, Wes, and it was, I'll tell you, Cantlay and Hovland, I don't have any bets on, I believe, but they are, I think, especially Victor Hovland, the one I'm kind of most concerned of just showing up out of nowhere and having a big week, because you're right, with some of the things we've seen out of him in the past, he could. He's
so up and down because he's had some really weird finishes this year, and then he won at the Valspar just 6 weeks ago where he held off Justin Thomas, who's one of the hottest guys in the game right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what the win equity is for Cantlay for me right now, so it's like he plays 2 really good rounds, plays 1 middling round, and then seems to have 1 bad round. I don't know. I couldn't get there with him, even though the model really liked him. I couldn't get there with Ludwig, even though I love him. Approach numbers are really down for him right now. Putting numbers pretty down for him too. And I just, another one of those guys I just couldn't quite get there. And I love the talent. Xander was a guy you and I talked a little bit yesterday too. Kelley,
I'm in heavy on Xander, just not an outright.
Yeah, same. So I ended up playing Xander, just not an outright market, but I do believe that we're turning in the right direction from him and for him. And I think if you kind of watched last week, which I was watching a decent amount, there was some up and downs with him. Certainly some stuff that didn't still quite look like he was back. But then, man, there was 3 and 4 and 5 hole stretches where you're like, okay, that's the Xander from last year, And I think you can, Wes. You look at a number like 22-1 on Xander. You're catching him before. I mean, again, if this is last year, this is 14.
They call it catch the falling knife here.
And so you're getting ahead of it here, and I think you might be getting ahead of it in a good way. Xander just seems like he's trending the right way.
Yeah, I mean, great finishes. We're talking about just what he's done recently. T11 last week, T18 at RBC Heritage, T8 at the Masters, T12 at the Valspar. I think one of the most shocking things to me. Look, he's always been one of those guys where I think people look at him and see a shorty, but he ain't no shorty off the tee. He's driving that ball far now. So I think that's big for this week and with what we've seen from him. But so I didn't go outright. I get it though, Wes. I am heavily invested in Xander.
So a shorty can be a shotty.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
This week.
I will say this: Patrick Reed, 13th in a couple of versions of
Really?
my model.
I'm faded Patrick Reed, so we might have some fun on this one.
So interesting. He was inside the top 15 in 2 different versions of the model for me, and probably would have been higher if it wasn't just for the fact that his off the tee is just
distance,
middling, and if it hadn't been for that, he probably would have been even higher. So you're looking at a guy inside the top 15. So I can understand it for sure. Just it's one of those weird, like the out of sight, out of mind things for me. Like I don't ever watch live, and I don't ever see him play, and so
I write down his name every year for the Masters. But other than that, it's out of sight, out of mind, totally.
Yeah, one and done for you. What do you? Wes said he'd go to DeChambeau.
Well, my one and done would be Bryson DeChambeau, and when we come back, I think we're going to talk about how we all like Bryson.
And it's the stuff I don't like about the bet for sure, but it's in the account, that is for sure. Maybe we have a pod play when we come back here on Long Shot.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Long Shots here on VSiN. Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelley Bydlon. We just got Wes's bets. Of course, VSiN.com is the place to be if you need to check out all of those in written form. And right now, you can get 14 months for the price of 12, just $199 over at VSiN.com/subscribe. So not only do you get Wes's bets, it's course breakdowns, but you'll get the emailed daily best bets. You can watch us live on the VSiN Watch app or over on the website. Of course, you can get all the betting guides that we put out along the way as well. $199, 14 months instead of 12, VSiN.com/subscribe. Kelley Bydlon, we will head to you now. A plethora, if you will, of bets here for the PGA
That's right.
Championship.
I was scrambling after a numbers game, getting some of these matchup bets in. Wanted to get as many out there for the folks. But yeah, I will start 3 outrights. It is a very short outright card for me this week because when you see the odds, you'll understand. I'm playing a lot of short guys. Rory McIlroy plus 525. We will start right there. There is not a single golfer on the PGA Tour that correlates better to a course and success than Rory McIlroy does here at Quail Hollow. So I will take the game that he has. And do I love the odds? No, but we are seeing Rory play some of the best golf of his career right now. I will roll it right back from the Masters and go with him at a little over 5-1. Available right here at Circa here in Las Vegas. So outright covering that then with a little bit of a top 5 with him. We ran through earlier what he's done this season. Stat profile fits this course to a T. Bryson, I'm in on. Matt, I didn't bet it over the weekend. I waited too long. Didn't expect to see. I expected him to be popular this week. I didn't expect him to be this popular. But I still think if you're getting 9-1 in that range, I do agree that he belongs closer to Scheffler and McIlroy than kind of that next tier down. So I'm okay with that price. And then Justin Thomas, I played 22-1 over the weekend. I know that number is still available at DraftKings. In Vegas, he is getting bet down pretty heavily, JT. I don't think there's many 20-1s left on him. This is a guy, though, that has just really rounded into form recently. T2 last week, won the RBC Heritage, T3 36 at the Masters, second at the Valspar. The iron game is back. The putter's working well. The one concern that we've kind of had about JT here this season is he going to spray it off the tee. He's got the distance, but if he starts spraying it, he could get in trouble here. So played an outright on him and then covering him with a top 10 at plus 215. I decided to go that route instead of a top 5 on him. Okay, heading down the board then. Xander Schauffele. I do really like Xander this week. This is one of my bigger bets of the week. Just decided to go with a top 20 on him, and then I played him in a matchup over Collin Morikawa. I'm not very high on Morikawa this week. I thought getting a minus 105 over Morikawa was a good matchup price. With you totally, Wes, on Xander. Could he show up and win this tournament? I don't think I think there is a possibility. The short-term form has been awesome. I'm hoping he keeps that rolling, but I'll stick with a top 20 bet. Corey Connors, probably the second golfer that I have the most amount of bets on. I bet him in the top 20 market, the top 30 market, and as top Canadian at plus 160. Really like that.
That's probably the way to go because the concern is he long enough?
Correct.
His ball striking is tremendous.
Yep.
The putting comes and goes with him, but I think that's the right approach for Connors to pepper him in the placements.
Yeah, even like how much I built in distance into the model, he still was a top 10 play for me. T13 and 8th the last 2 times he teed it up at Quail Hollow. Recent form. Matt, you and I were talking about this yesterday, but you just look at what he's done this season. It's top 20s all over the board. So I really like Corey Connors this week. I'll go back to that play. A couple of the other longer shots, not as big of bets for me, but Andrew Novak, I'm going to try to ride the hot hand here. This guy, T17, the Truist, was a part of the team that won the Zurich, second at RBC Heritage, T3 at the Valero. He's just seemingly always on the leaderboard. So I'm going to play him in the top 30 market at over 2-1 plus 240. Bud Cauley's a guy we've talked a bit about on the pod this year. Man, just kind of the simplistic, what do I want? Off the tee, approach, putting? Rates out top 15 in all 3 of those categories for me. So I'm going to play a top 30 on him at 3-1. See if we can get those longer shots home. I mean, not as class players as a lot of these other guys. So we'll have to see. Daniel Berger then going heavier on a top 40 with him. We've talked about his ball striking numbers this year being great. Doesn't exactly have that distance off the tee you're looking for, but the accuracy helps make up for it, and the long iron play is great. Matchups will all be listed on VSiN.com. I'll rattle through these real quick, but Schauffele over Morikawa. I also played Justin Thomas over Morikawa. JJ Spawn over Olesen, and then Berger over Patrick Reed. That was my one Patrick Reed fade. And then Jordan Spieth, I'm betting him again this week, Matt.
Yeah.
Over Brooks Koepka. That one hurt to put in, but I don't have Brooks rated very highly this week.
I don't know if Brooks cares too much anymore.
I don't know that he does either.
You know, I think it's like he's living the good life.
I know Dustin Johnson doesn't.
Yeah,
if you're following his IG.
Yeah, Dustin Johnson doesn't care. I mean, you got a fat paycheck and you got whatever it is. Just 3 outrights for me this week, and we all match up here on Bryson DeChambeau. I will give this caveat. I made it over the weekend. There are a few red flags with Bryson DeChambeau, and so I know everyone's hot and heavy to bet him this week, but there are recent approach tournaments in which he's losing multiple strokes on approach, right? I mean, like there are, and we're talking on live too, and like, so it's not even the strongest of competition. You're talking in Adelaide, nearly 1.964. In Hong Kong, 2.92. You get to the Masters, he lost 4.2 strokes on approach. Basically even at Live Miami, and also in Live Mexico City on approach. And if we do think that approach is going to be so incredibly important here, especially if we think we're going to get a little bit softer conditions, maybe these greens hold a tiny bit better than they would in any other deal. I'll put it this way. I don't think it is a just open and shut that Bryson is going to definitely succeed here, where I do think it is almost definite to me that Scotty and Rory are going to have a good day. And so I went and added both of them over at 5-1, something I never, ever do. I'm basically trying to get a little bit over 2-1 on my money this week in the outright markets and just kind of move on from there. I will say, this is not a bold statement, I don't guess, because it is Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau. I think I will actually be surprised if it's not one of those three guys that win this week. I actually will be surprised if it's not one of those three guys. And the only guy that probably wouldn't surprise me would be like Xander or JT, just they're pedigreed dudes that are awesome anyway. But like, it fits every single thing these dudes do. I know we don't think about Scotty being the longest guy. Scotty Scheffler is still long enough off the tee. And the thing is, it doesn't really matter because with his irons, there's nobody better. He is going to be looking at 12-foot putts all weekend long. And now will he make them or not? That's probably going to be the difference in all of this. But the dude is going to put it close. That's just what Scotty Scheffler does. Ran away with that tournament 2 weeks ago. Just absolutely annihilated the field. And I think it's going to be one of these three guys that wins. And that's why I just did what I did, and I'm moving on from there.
Yeah, I don't hate it. The only other thing I'll push back a little bit on Bryson is, you know what, of those three guys, Bryson is he's the most consistent putter, right? So I think that on a course where putting's going to matter, that's nice to have in the bag. So I can't argue with you playing it this way this week, Doug. I do think it's most likely one of those three guys, and you probably brought up the next two names for me. It would just power ranking them out, Wes. It probably would be Xander and JT for me. Ludwig's interesting at that number. I know you bet him. I love Ludwig too. I got close.
I just bet the number because he fell, because it was like everybody wanted to bet him at the Masters. And he played pretty darn well, except for those last two holes where he goes triple and bogey on the final. He would have ended up third, one outside the playoff, but still I think made a nice showing there. So just a couple shaky tournaments, and he's already up to close to 30-1. I just thought that number was right.
I got Xander over Rahm in a head-to-head. I've got Connors over Straka in a head-to-head. I have Minwoo Lee and Bud Cauley both in the top 40 markets out there. Minwoo's even money. You can get Bud Cauley at nearly 2-1 out there. John Rahm, another guy, I just got to see it first.
I was going to bring him up. That's the last thing I was going to bring up.
You look at the form line, and it's like he's never finished outside the top 10. And I know that's only 54 players, but still, he's never finished outside the top 10. But it's like he hasn't dominated.
Yeah.
Like when he joined at the end of 2023, we're like, He's going to
win every other tournament.
He's going to win like 7 events of the 12 events or something.
And his major play suffered since he went over.
So I just got to see it.
I'll tell you, though, we don't often talk about this with golf and golf betting, but oh boy, the books are refusing to move that number, right? Like I haven't seen many that are willing to hang a 20 out there on Rahm. So maybe we'll all get surprised by it.
Well, we shall see. There's no doubt about that. As far as for me, one and done. Any of these three, if you have Scotty, Rory, or Bryson, I can't talk you off of any of those guys. Obviously, you're only going to be able to play Bryson in a handful of tournaments. So from a strategic standpoint, there is at least that you can do out there. And then, past that, guys, I mean, from a DFS standpoint, some other guys that did rate high, Keith Mitchell, Kevin Yu, Laurie Cantor. We talked about Jordan Spieth, JJ Spawn. These are all guys that are showing up in the top 20s of my models if you're trying to round out DFS lineups and stuff.
Keegan.
The win Keegan's inside the top 20 for me as well with all of this. Torbjorn Olesen is another one that you might could throw in your DFS lineups. Again, we don't think the win equity necessarily is there for these dudes, but hey, you got to put 6 dudes in a lineup.
Somebody's always on the first page of that leaderboard on Sunday. It's like, we saw Michael Block a couple years ago. By the way, Blocky is back in this field this week, not paired with Rory McIlroy, however. That is.
Oh man, he made me feel so good when he just straight hosel rocketed that one into the crowd, like whatever. It was so good. It's like, hey, one of us.
Maybe you don't belong here just yet.
With all this, again, guys, all of the picks will be up over on VSiN.com. Thanks for being with us here on Long Shots.
Sports.